Hello and welcome back. We are talking about Chapter 9, Measurement and Geometry, focusing on Lesson 1, Perimeter and Circumference. So, the perimeter of any figure is the distance around the figure. That's what the perimeter is. So, think of perimeter as going around the rim of the figure. So, if this was our figure here, this would be the rim, and we would be going around the rim of the figure. Perimeter. Okay, so that would mean you just add up all of the sides. So find the perimeter of a figure by adding the measures of the sides, okay? So what we're going to do is find the perimeter of each figure. So to find the perimeter, we are going to find the distance around each side, and the distance is just stated here. So the perimeter is going to equal 9 plus 6 plus 5. All right? Then we just do that, right? 9 plus 6 is 15. 15 plus 5 is 20. So that means the perimeter is 20 inches. The units are inches, okay? So here it says the perimeter of the triangle is 20 inches. Perfect. Let's go over to this four-sided figure, which is a quadrilateral. And remember, the word perimeter has the word rim in it. Okay, so we're going to find the rim. We're going to add up all the measures of the rim of this figure. Perimeter. Okay? So to find the perimeter, we're just going to add up all the sides. So the perimeter equals 10 plus 8 plus 11 plus 7. Okay, to do this, I am just going to add a couple of these first. So we're going to go left to right. So 10 plus 8 would be 18. 10 plus 8 is 18. Plus 11 plus 7 is also 18. So then we end up with 18 plus 18. Do that off to the side. 8 plus 8 is 16. Write the 6, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So that means 18 plus 18 is 36. So it's going to be 36 centimeters. So the perimeter of the quadrilateral ends up being 36 centimeters. All right. Perfect. Let's go here. To find the perimeter of a rectangle. Now, to understand a rectangle, you know that a rectangle has two sides that are opposite, which are exactly the same length. Okay, those are called the lengths. And then two of the other sides, which are called the width, which are exactly the same. Okay, the other characteristic of a rectangle is that every single one of the angles is 90 degrees. So this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees, this is 90 degrees, and this is 90 degrees. So to find the perim, remember we're adding up all the sides around the rim of the figure. To find the perimeter of a rectangle, you can add the two lengths because there's 1, 2. This is a length and this is a length. Those are the lengths. And there's two of them and they're the same. So you can add 2 lengths and 2 widths. Because this right here, this is a width, and this is also a width, and there are 2 of them. Okay, so we have a formula for the perimeter. And the formula for the perimeter is actually equal to the perimeter equals 2 lengths, which are those lengths, plus the 2 widths right here. So let's go ahead and determine what the perimeter is of this figure, all right? So what is our length? Our length is 8, so I'm going to say L equals 8. Okay, that's our length. L equals 8. And what's our width? Our width is equal to 5, and W equals 5. That is our width here. Then we just substitute those values into our perimeter equation. So the perimeter equals 2 times the length, and the length is 8, plus 2 times the width, and the width is 5. Then we have to do order of operations. Order of operations says we have to do the multiplication first. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 2 times 5 is 10. And then we go perimeter equals 16 plus 10, which would be 26 feet. That is what the perimeter ends up being for that. So on these problems, when we're dealing with quadrilaterals or rectangles, we're dealing with rectangles, not quadrilaterals. We're dealing with rectangles. This is the formula you can use for rectangles. Okay, P equals 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So we're going to write that formula. We're going to define our terms. We're going to substitute it in, use our order of operations, and solve to find that the perimeter of the rectangle is 26 feet. All right, perfect. Let's go on to our next problems here. So here we're going to find the perimeter of each polygon. So first, we know that we're going to be finding the perimeter, that's the rim around this. We're just going to be adding up these sides for this triangle. So the perimeter is going to equal 13 plus 15 plus 11. Okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and add up all those numbers over here. 13 plus 15 plus 11. So 3 plus 5 is 8 plus 1 is 9, and 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So the perimeter equals 39 meters. Perfect. Let's go on to number 2. We're going to find the perimeter of this figure, which is just the distance around. Okay, think about the rim. So the perimeter is going to equal 23 plus 24 plus 30 plus 21. And we're just going to add these numbers up. Because there's a lot, I'm going to just add the first two up. So 23 plus 24 off to the side. 3 plus 4 is 7. 2 plus 2 is 4. So those two together equal 47 plus 30 plus 21. 30 plus 21. 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 plus 2 is 5. So that ends up being 51. And then finally, I just need to add these two numbers. So 47 plus 51. 7 plus 1 is 8. 4 plus 5 is 9. So that means the perimeter equals 98 feet. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to problem 3. Now, problem 3, we're dealing with a rectangle. So we can use our perimeter formula for a rectangle, which is P equals 2L plus 2W. So I'm going to say that my length is right here. My length is 16, and my width is 8. And then I'm just going to substitute those values into this equation. So P equals 2 times L, L is 16, plus 2 times W, and W is 8. Now I'm just going to work out the problem with my order of operations, which states I have to do the multiplication first. So the perimeter is going to equal, I need to figure out what 2 times 16 is. So 16 times 2, 2 times 6 is 12, right? The 2 carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So that ends up being 32 plus 2 times 8 is 16. Then I just need to add these two numbers together, 32 and 16. 2 plus 6 is 8. 3 plus 1 is 4. So that means my perimeter equals 48 centimeters. All right. Let's go ahead and go on to the next page. So the next page is dealing with the perimeter of circles. Now the perimeter of circles has a special name, but we're still finding the rim of the figure, the distance around the figure. The distance around a circle is called the circumference. So whenever you talk about the distance around a circle, that has a very special name. The distance around the circle right here, we're going all the way around. If you want to figure out what this distance is, this distance around the circle is referred to as the circumference. To find the circumference of a circle, you need to know the diameter or the radius of the circle. So there's two things that you need to either know. You need to know the diameter or you need to know the radius of the circle. So one of those two things. The ratio of the circumference of any circle to its diameter is the circumference divided by the diameter is always the same. So no matter what the circumference is, if you divide it by the diameter, it's always the same. This ratio is known as pi, okay? And pi has a value that is approximately 3.14. But pi really just keeps going on and on and on forever. It's this number that just never stops. It's actually, pi is equal to 3.141596535893238462, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on forever. But for the most part, when we talk about pi, we just say that pi equals 3.14. That's how we refer to pi. And that's what we'll be using for a lot of these problems. So, to find the circumference C of a circle, if you know the diameter D, multiply pi times the diameter. So this is the formula that we're going to use for figuring out the circumference if we know the diameter. So if we know the diameter, we're going to be using this formula right here. The circumference equals pi times the diameter. Okay, or C equals 3.14 because 3.14 is the same thing as pi times the diameter. Notice that when we have it written like this, it's C equals pi times the diameter, because pi represents the exact number 3.1459, and it just keeps going on and on forever. But right here we have a little wavy equal sign. That means approximately. So once we just say 3.14, we're no longer talking about an exact value. We're talking about approximate value, because 3.14 is not exactly the same thing as pi. What you do is you round off all that other part of pi. So that when you do that and you just call it 3.14, then it becomes an approximation. It becomes a pretty close, but it's not exact. But when you have pi, you can put an equal sign because it means exact. So we're going to go ahead and figure out what the circumference of this circle is. So we know we're going to be using the formula C equals pi d. And the diameter from one side to the other that goes through the circle, d equals 6 inches. So we're going to go ahead and substitute that value in for d, and we end up with C equals pi times 6. And then we're going to substitute 3.14 in for pi. Now when we do that, it becomes an approximation. So 3.14 times 6. And we need to go ahead and do that math. I'm going to do it right over here. 3.14 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. I'm going to write the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay? Since I'm multiplying decimals, I need to look at the decimal places, and there's 2 decimal places here, which means there needs to be 2 decimal places in my answer, which means my answer ends up being circumference is approximately 18.84 inches. So the circumference is about, to the nearest tenth. Okay, we got to round to the nearest tenth. This is the tenths place. This 4 needs to be a 5 or above to round this up. It's below a 5, so it just ends up being 18.8 inches. All right, perfect. that's how that one works. So whenever you have a diameter, you're going to use the equation circumference equals pi times d. Okay, the diameter of a circle is twice as long as the radius. So a diameter, so right here, the diameter is 6. Well, if you just look at this, and you go from here to here, that's half of 6, which is 3. So this is the radius is equal to 3, and this radius is equal to 3. Okay? So that means that the diameter is actually made up of 2 radiuses, one here and one here. So, or radii, I guess you would say 2 radii right there. So we can say that the diameter is equal to 2r. Diameter is equal to 2r. So to find the circumference, if you know the radius, what you do is you replace the diameter with 2r because they are the same thing in the formula. So d is the same thing, the diameter is the same thing as 2 radii. So in the formula, if we have the circumference equals pi times the diameter, instead of writing the diameter, we can write 2r because these two things are the same, which means we end up with the formula circumference equals 2 pi r, where that 2r is the same thing as the diameter, which would make it diameter times pi. Okay? So whenever you have a radius in your circle, you're going to use this formula, circumference equals 2 pi r, which is the same thing as circumference equaling pi d up here. It's just that the diameter is the same thing as 2r. So there we go. Let's go ahead and look at some problems. So for the first problem, it says find the circumference given the diameter. So, and it also says use 3.14 for pi. So we have the diameter equaling 9 centimeters. So since I have the diameter, I'm going to use the formula for the circumference, which is circumference equals pi times the diameter. Okay, and the diameter is equal to 9 centimeters. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and substitute that in for d. So now I have c equals pi times 9. And then I'm going to use 3.14 for pi. Now, when I do that, it becomes an approximation. 3.14 times 9. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do that math. 3.14 times 9. 4 times 9 is 36. Write the 6, carry the 3. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 is 28. And then I just need to count up the decimal places. There's 1, 2, which means I'm going to have 1, 2 right there, which means we are going to end up with a circumference that is approximate to 28.26 centimeters. So that would be our answer right there. And this is how you show your work. Okay, so I want you to show your work like this. Let's go on to problem 5. Find the circumference given the radius, use 3.14 for pi. So now we have a radius. So we're going to use the formula circumference equals 2 pi r. I'm going to define my variables where r is equal to 13. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in for r. Circumference equals 2 pi times 13. Okay, and pi is equal to 3.14. So I'm going to say c equals 2 times 3.14 times 13, just like that. Now, one thing I can do, I know that 2 times 13 is actually equal to 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 1 is 2, 26. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply those first. So 26 times 3.14. And now I'm just going to go off to the side and figure out what that is. 3.14 times 26. 6 times 4 is 24. Write the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Write the 0 because now we're in the tens place. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Then I add. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 8 is 16. Write the 6, carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, and then we drop down the 6. And then we just need to figure out where to put the decimal place. There's 2 decimal places here. That means our answer has to have 2 decimal places there. So we end up with 641.64, which means the circumference is 641.64 inches. And that's how you show your work. So I want you to keep this equation looking nice. Do all your extra little calculations off to the side. Don't do them in the middle of the problem. At the end of the day, you want all your equal signs to line up. Mine, for the most part, line up. Oh, I forgot to write my approximation. When I substituted 3.14 in here, this would be an approximate. So it should be approximate. Let me get this right. There we go. See, the circumference is approximately 641.64. It's pretty close to that. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and find the circumference for each one of these circles using the correct formula if you're dealing with a diameter or a radius. So it's your turn. Go ahead and press pause. Work out 6, 7, and 8. Show all your work. Write all the equations. Define all your terms. All that fun stuff. And we will see you back in a little bit. When you get done, go ahead and press play. All right. See you in a bit. You can do it. I believe in you. Woohoo! All right, we're back. Let's go ahead and get started on problem 6. So 6, we're given a diameter. We're given that the diameter is 13. We need to find the circumference to the nearest tenth. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that because I feel like I may forget it, and I don't want to forget it. So find the circumference to the nearest tenth. Perfect. We have a diameter, so we're going to be using the equation that the circumference equals pi times d. And what does d equal? D equals 13. So you should have this equation. You should define your term. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and substitute that in. C equals pi times 13. And then we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to say C is approximate to 3.14 times 13. To do this little bit, I'm going to go off to the side. 3.14 times 13. So yeah, let's do it. 3 times 4 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. Write the 0, go into 10 spot. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. And then we add. 2 plus 0 is 2. 4 plus 4 is 8. 9 plus 1 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Perfect. So now we just need to figure out where to put that decimal place. There's 1, 2 decimal places, so that means our answer needs to have 1, 2 decimal places. And we're just going to go ahead and put that decimal place right there. So our circumference, ooh, remember we have to round this to the nearest tenth. Okay, so this is the nearest tenth. Does this 2 round this up? It has to be a 5 or above to round it up, and it is not, so it does not. So our circumference is approximately 40.8 centimeters. And that is our final answer, and so every final answer deserves a box around it. Woohoo! If you got that one, great job. Let's move on to problem 7. Problem 7, what I see is we have a radius. So that means we're going to use the formula. I'm going to go ahead and give myself some space. Circumference equals 2 pi r. Now the radius is equal to 5, so I'm going to say r equals 5, and then we're just going to substitute it in. So C equals 2 pi, r is 5, so I'm going to write in 5 times 5, parentheses means times. Okay, and then I'm just going to do this little bit right here. 2 times 5 is the same thing as 10, so circumference equals 10 times pi, and pi is 3.14. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So now I'm just going to do this math right here. I'm going to do it right here. 3.14 times 10. That is equal to 0 times 4 is 0. Well, just everything's going to be 0. So I'm just going to go here to the ones place. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Now I need to know where to put that decimal place. 1, 2 spots. 1, 2. And so my answer ends up being 31.4. I need to round it to the nearest tenth. There's a 0, so it just stays at 31.4. So that is my circumference. Ooh, I forgot something. When I put in that 3.14, it becomes approximate. So my answer, C, is approximately, really, really close to 31.4 feet. And every answer deserves a lovely box around it. And there you go. If you got that one right, woohoo! Perfect. Let's go on to problem 8. Problem 8, we have a radius. So we're going to go ahead and use our formula, circumference equals 2 pi r. And now the radius is equal to 1.5. So r equals 1.5. Perfect. We're going to go ahead and substitute that in for r. We end up with c equals 2 pi and then times 1.5. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these. So 1.5 times 2 off to the side. 1.5 times 2 is 2 times 5 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. I have, multiplying with decimals, so I have 1 decimal place, so my answer has to have 1 decimal place. And so my answer is just basically 3, which is amazing. Okay, cool. So that means the circumference, 2 times 1.5, is 3, but I'm going to go ahead and write in that 3.14, so that's going to make this an approximate. 3.14. So now I just need to determine what is 3.14 times 3. I'm going to do that off to the side. 3.14 times 3. Okay, 3 times 4 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Okay. And then I'm multiplying decimals. There's 1, 2 spots, so that means my answer needs to have 1, 2 spots there. So I end up with 9.42, but remember I have to round to the nearest tenth, which would be right here. So that would mean for this 4 to become a 5, this 2 would have to be higher, a 5 or above. And it is not. So my answer for the circumference is approximately 9.4 inches. And every answer deserves a box around it. So if you got all 3 of those right, yokiniki you did a great job. Woohoo, you're amazing, I'm so proud of you. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.